David Cohn. David joins us now over the phone. David, it's Michael and Don. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So you watched the game yesterday. Are you concerned with CC?
Well, he certainly did look like two different pitchers, Michael. I mean, within the first couple of innings, it looked like Joe Girardi was going to have to go get him and yank him out of that game. But I just noticed a real discernible difference in his rhythm and his timing and his release point in the last 4 innings. So I actually was pretty encouraged that he finished on a strong note and that Girardi allowed him to stay in that game. I think that was a big key for CC to kind of get a little bit of confidence back.
Is it tough to redefine yourself as a pitcher, David, especially when you have the ego of being as dominant as he was in a certain fashion?
Very difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult evolutions that a pitcher is going to go through. Your misses, when you do miss, have to be off the plate. They can't be up and out over the plate like CC's were in the first 2 innings, because then you're going to get a lot of quick damage, and that's what CC said after the game. I know he said he was amped up and that he was a little too quick with his delivery, but when you make mistakes with diminished velocity and they're out and up over the plate, that's when you can have those 4-run innings or those big crooked numbers that get on the board in a hurry, and it happens so fast, sometimes you don't have time to make an adjustment.
Now, David, John Flaherty, our colleague, tweeted yesterday during the game that CC has to make hitters uncomfortable. Do you agree that, because he does not throw as hard, he's got to command the plate and move people's feet?
Yes, that's a great point from Flash. You really have to establish the inside corner and pitch in off the plate and be able to push guys off the plate in order to get the outside part of the plate. But it seemed like no matter what he did yesterday in the first 2 innings, things were kind of left flat and up out over the plate. Even his changeup was kind of cutting on him. And, that's kind of a sure sign of just a little uneasiness. It just looked like his delivery was too quick the first 2 innings. He was too anxious, and then he finally settled down once the damage was done, and his rhythm was much, much better in the last 4 innings, and he actually did pitch inside much more effectively in the latter 4 innings.
What I didn't like, David, is that some of his worst pitches came after mistakes behind him. I believe he gave up the home run right after the Teixeira throwing error. Is that just a mental block sometimes for a pitcher who gets so frustrated with what happens that's out of his control that now he ends up hurting what is in his control?
That's a great point, Don. And that's one of the first things I look for in pitchers is how they pitch after an error. I think it's really important for pitchers to pick up their fielders. CC Sabathia is not that type of guy. I've never seen him do that on the mound before. I really believe that he's got to get out of that rear back and try to throw harder mode that he's always been accustomed to and really be a lot more fine on the corners. He's got to go for location and hit his spots. And when he misses, he's got to make sure those misses are off the plate a little bit and not up and out over the plate.
Now, you went through this, David, because when you came up with the Royals and then with the Mets, you threw very, very hard. How long did it take for you to have a different mindset? Because obviously, mechanically, you could do it, but I would assume that mentally it's the hardest thing, because when you needed to get outs when you were young, you could throw a ball by somebody.
Yeah, it is a very hard adjustment. You just have to sort of get into the mindset that you are just never going to give in, especially with runners in scoring position, that you are not going to give the hitter a chance to get a ball to drive, even if you mix in a few more walks, which is what Sabathia is going to have to do. And I know a lot of sabermetricians would disagree with that in terms of your whip and walking guys, but it served me well, especially in postseason play and big games, that you just don't give in, that you're going to go for the corners, and if you have to pitch around certain hitters once you fall behind them, then you got to put them on first base. You can't give in, and that's kind of a mentality that you have to develop, that grind it out, never die, never give in mentality, and just keep trying to make good quality strikes and make your pitches on the corners.
David, you hear this especially in sports radio. If the Giants lose to a lousy football team, they look past them. They got overconfident. You hear that in basketball. Is that really a baseball thing? Could the Yankees have actually walked into that game not mentally prepared because the Astros were so bad last year?
That's a valid point. I don't think that applies on opening day. I really think opening day is so big that everything kind of goes out the window. I do kind of disagree with the Yankees scheduling at the end of spring training to have two off days before the opening day. I didn't like the way spring training ended for them on a rain out, and they had a lot of dead time before that first game at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. So I would have liked to have seen a little better ending to their spring training, maybe even come up north for a couple of exhibition games or somehow work it out, even though they started on the road, to be able to finish, on a better note in spring training where you feel like the guys were fired up on all cylinders and ready to go.
David, obviously it doesn't matter that I think it, but I thought that Dellin Betances was just electric last night. What was your take on him?
It's the best I've ever seen him throw the baseball, and I haven't seen him a lot, just on the big league level and then a little bit of video in the minor leagues. But, I mean, he really was dominating, especially with his fastball. We knew he had a good curveball. He showed that all spring training and good command of that curveball, but his fastball still was a little all over the map at times. But last night, I mean, he was throwing bullets on the black. He just had such confidence on the mound. It really looks like he's a young pitcher that's turned the corner in terms of mentally and his confidence level, because that was as good as he could throw a baseball last night.
Now, was that ideal for him to be in a game they're already down 6-0? Would you want to see that in maybe a one-run game when it's all in doubt for the final of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great move by Girardi to get both Betances and Nuno in the game last night. They earned their spot in spring training. Girardi said all along that he's going to take the 12 best pitchers, and those two guys are part of the 12 best pitchers. So Betances is going to move up the ladder in a hurry if he keeps throwing the ball like that. And it's a good idea to get his feet wet first. But if he keeps that trend going, you're going to see him in a lot more high leverage situations, because the Yankees could certainly use him this year.